You guys can tell me when you're ready. That's one.
That's the only one that matters. Like, come on.
Good. 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 All right. Good morning. Enough is enough. We have had enough of this governor's bullying of our public school teachers, and I am not going to let it continue. Governor Bevin has called our teachers thugs, ignorant people, drowning victims that need to be knocked out and drugged to shore. When they protested, he accused them of causing the abuse and addiction of children. Last week, he claimed a child died, that a child was shot because of a sickout. And now, his administration wants to subpoena school districts so he can attempt to directly fine teachers up to $1,000 a day for showing up at this Capitol and protesting legislation which would have significantly harmed public education. The governor's words and actions are despicable. They are bullying, and I'm here to stop him. As the Attorney General, it is my job to protect people when they are under attack. It's why I've stood up to opioid companies, to for-profit colleges, and to scammers. But now our teachers, who leave their families every day to invest and to teach our children, are under direct attack by their governor. So I'm going to stand up to him too. So this morning, along with JCTA, I filed a lawsuit to stop these subpoenas. We are requesting a judge issue a temporary restraining order in this case so that Bath, Boyd, Bullitt, Carter, Fayette, Jefferson, Letcher, Madison, Marion, and Oldham County school districts are not forced to respond to this subpoena that has a deadline of May the 10th. We are seeking a hearing on May the 6th on that temporary restraining order. In our lawsuit, we talk about the fact that the Labor Cabinet Secretary simply does not have the power to do what he's trying to do. That as a matter of law, there is no strike or work stoppage at issue here, which means he does not have the power to subpoena, and he does not have the power to try to fine teachers $1,000 apiece. To qualify as a work stoppage or a strike under Kentucky law, there must be two things present. First, there must be a dispute between an employer and an employee. Here, the employees are teachers, and their employees are the school districts. The school districts are not objecting. They are not trying to punish the teachers, and they do not believe there is a work stoppage or a strike. That means that this Labor Cabinet Secretary does not have a labor dispute and cannot subpoena and try to fine our teachers. But second, even if there was a labor dispute, the sickouts would have had to be about a teacher's employment conditions, meaning they'd have to be protesting what they are paid, the conditions in their school, things that directly relate to their employment. That would be required for there to be a strike or a work stoppage under Kentucky law. And here, that's not the case. We all know what the teachers were protesting. They were protesting private school tax credits, which could have debilitated funding for public education. They were fighting for the overall funding and structure of our system of public education. And folks, that exact situation occurred in Detroit, where there was a sickout, and it's the only known case out there dealing with sickouts, where teachers called in sick to protest overall funding and structure of the Detroit Public School District. And in that one, the employer, the school district, actually filed suit. And even though that was a dispute between the employer and the employee, the teacher still won, and the other side lost. Why? Because they weren't protesting their pay, and they weren't protesting their conditions of employment. They were protesting the overall funding and structure of the system of public education. Today, we are taking the action to stop these attacks on teachers and to stop these attacks on public education. This type of retaliation, intimidation, and threats by a governor and his administration must not be allowed. The bully pulpit was never meant to bully, and I'm not going to let him use it. the timing. The timing of these actions is incredibly concerning. Right now, this governor is trying to subpoena, fine, and intimidate teachers at a time when he is going to call a special session on pensions themselves, meaning that teachers will not feel that they are able to come to this Capitol without reprisal when those pensions are at issue. Our public servants deserve so much better. They deserve a governor that does not attack and bully them. But as long as Matt Bevin attacks our public servants, I'm going to stop him. We'll take any questions.
In the Labor Secretary's letter to you,
I read that.
he brought up that it's their belief that this isn't a First Amendment issue, but an issue of whether or not teachers can use sick time when they're not sick. What's your response to that?
You know, the Detroit case addressed that directly. And they said as long as teachers in a sickout are protesting overall funding for public education or issues related to the public education system in general, that it is protected First Amendment speech, and that is the only case directly related to what's happened here. So the only judge out there that's looked at this has found it's protected First Amendment speech.
The governor's chief of staff recently came out with a statement calling this a political stunt.
Ah.
And I believe referencing a tweet from your campaign account last week, sort of promoting your efforts with this lawsuit.
Well, I think that's rich. I use my personal Twitter account, which is what that is, to promote work of the Attorney General's office while he uses his official account today to attack his political enemies. But he's been doing this for years. He's been making videos shot by a state employee that attack teachers, ministers, even former superintendents, anybody who disagrees with them, and he calls them political in each and every one of those videos. This is a governor who sent the state police to a board meeting to arrest someone that he disagrees with if they tried to sit at the table and take a vote. This is the same governor who locked people out of the Capitol who are here to protest and disagree with them. This is a governor who has used state resources to bully people and to further his own political agenda and to attack political enemies almost every day of his administration.
General Beshear, he mentioned the shooting of the little girl. That little girl survived, and I don't believe he said that she died. Did you misspeak, or did you believe that he said that at the beginning of your statement?
Well, I may have misspoken, but him blaming a shooting of a child on a sickout is despicable, and it is wrong. He's tried to blame teachers who are expressing their First Amendment rights for causing abuse and addiction and now shooting. That is absolutely wrong.
He said, and others have said, that if the little girl had been in school, she would have never been shot at. What do you think of that argument?
What time did it happen?
3 o'clock.
Okay.
What school was that?
Well, these things can happen at any time, and for a governor to try to claim that a child was shot and it's due to teachers expressing their First Amendment rights is wrong. There's no other way about it, Chris. It's wrong. The statement is wrong. It's despicable. He should have never said it. He ought to own up to it. He ought to apologize.
What would you say to the parents who were angry that their student did miss the ACT due to teacher sit-downs?
Oh, I get that it causes difficulties with parents. It does. And we want school to be in each and every day, but none of those parents, even though they had to reschedule their ACT, believe that teachers should be fined $1,000 by a governor who's trying to suppress their speech and keep them away from an upcoming special session. If a school district wants to have a discussion with their teachers on this, that's one thing. But for a governor to try to step in the shoes of that school district and try to punish people who disagree with them is wrong.
Brent, I have a question for you.
Sure.
You actually, if you could step up to the podium so we make sure you hear your response. You tried to get your members not to strike at the end of the sick-out. You tried to get them not to sick out. They didn't listen to you. They went, and now you're defending their right to have done so. Is that correct?
That's correct. But the bottom line is this. We believe it's critically important for teachers to be able to advocate for their students, particularly against bad legislation that would harm kids in public education. We had worked out, the association, JCTA, had worked out an approach that would have allowed us to do that while keeping schools open. We would have been able to send hundreds of teachers and keep schools open. That's what we recommended to our members. but we're here because our members chose, for very good reasons that they believed in for their students, that the best thing to do to protect their students and their profession was to do what they did and come to Frankfort in the manner that they did. And they were exercising their First Amendment rights when they did that. So it was not the method that we recommended, but it was for the right reasons, and it was, we believe, protected First Amendment speech.
With the numbers in the last couple of days of the sickouts, nowhere near what must have called in to get JCPS to close, do you think that the Labor Cabinet has a right to try to figure out where all those teachers were if they weren't here in the last few days of the sickout?
That's not for the Labor Cabinet to do. If that's an issue that a school district wants to pursue, the school district has the option to do that. I'm not aware of any school district that has asked the Labor Cabinet to get in the middle of this. The Labor Cabinet is not the employer. The school districts are the employers. So it is inappropriate to for the Labor Cabinet to insert itself between the employer and the employees.
Would you find it if JCPS wanted to find out where those teachers were and was checking on those teachers who called in sick, whether it was a legitimate day out, if they came here to Frankfurt or if they did not? Would you fight it as a union?
We would certainly represent our members and advocate for our members. It would be the employer's right to pursue that and to look into that if they chose to do so. We'd respect their right to do it, and we would advocate for our members, and we would, of course, provide advocacy for our members.
But that would be the Detroit situation, where the school district actually tried to take action because of a sick out based on First Amendment rights, and the school district lost, and the teachers won. It is critical to protect our First Amendment rights. That's what we're doing here today. But look, the Labor Cabinet was created to try to make sure that there were fair relations between employers and employees. And there is no dispute between the employer school district and the employee teachers here. This is a direct attempt to punish and attack teachers. It is a direct attempt to bully, and we're not going to let it happen.
General, have you contacted, or do you know if these school districts will put everything on hold until the court settles this?
I believe that the school districts are waiting and will be watching our hearing. We're asking for a hearing and a restraining order before the answers are due, and we don't expect any school district to provide responses before our hearing, and hopefully before there's a ruling on this.
Have you sent them that information?
Yes.
And you've asked them not to respond?
Oh, we've been in communication. We've told the school districts that we believe that these subpoenas are unlawful, that the Labor Cabinet does not have this authority, and that we're going to be challenging it.
Have you spoken to Greg Stumbo, Will Schroeder, Daniel Cameron, anyone who may become the next Attorney General? Because
No.
this may last a long time.
Right.
This may string out the courts, whether they would continue these fights?
I'm doing this in my role as Attorney General. I'm not reaching out to any political candidates about it, but I plan on getting this done before my term ends, because we absolutely cannot let a governor try to directly fine and bully teachers.
Do you believe that it can get through the court system? We've seen other lawsuits between you and the executive branch, and it's taken a year and a half, 2 years to wrap up.
Well, I believe that we can at least get these subpoenas stopped and hopefully get this fully wrapped up by that period.
Are you preparing for Governor Beshear to ask for a lot of extensions and delays to try and kind of put you out?
Well, unless they are willing to delay the answers of the subpoena, they won't have an argument there. Now, if they want to agree that we'll put the subpoenas on hold until we get this through the court system, that'd be okay, because that means that our teachers are not under that imminent threat. And so that'd certainly be something reasonable. It's what courts have asked for in the past, and that'd be something we'd entertain and would be a civil way to move forward. Wouldn't you all like to see a civil way to move forward?
Do you be okay with that even if it extends through January, which means that you would be back in office for this fall?
Well, I believe that the next governor, whoever they are, is going to rescind these because they're wrong.
You have obviously been at the forefront of this, and Leader Atkins is as well.
Mhm.
Yet the JCPA has endorsed Harry Edel. Can you
Yeah.
comment on that, please?
Under the personnel cabinet guidance, we can't talk directly about politics here in this room or this building. That was the guidance that this governor's administration put out, and if you want to reach out to anyone outside of this, I think that they can respond to you that way.
I want to be sure what constitutes the bullying. The subpoenas, because what harm has been done so far? It's caused anxiety
This is a threat. The governor has made this threat. The commissioner of education said, well, I'm not going to take action, but the labor cabinet could subpoena you and fine you $1,000, and then the labor cabinet's doing it. This isn't even a veiled threat. It is a direct threat, direct intimidation, and it's against people who aren't paid enough, who dedicate their lives to teaching our children. Our teachers do not deserve this. Jack, did you ever think that we would be at a time where our teachers are called names, where their retirement is placed in a sewer bill that they illegally pass in 6 hours, and now a labor cabinet tries to subpoena and fine them $1,000? It shouldn't matter what party you're in or whether you're right or left. This is right versus wrong, and it's wrong.
And I would like to add to that there is an immediate harm, because I think ultimately one of the objectives of this is to chill the engagement of teachers
Yes.
against an anti-public education privatization agenda on the governor's part. So
Agreed.
it is designed to make teachers fearful to engage on behalf of their students and their profession in public education. So that's an immediate harm. Let's say there's a special session or what have you that could impact the students in our school districts. This
Right.
makes teachers more fearful to engage on behalf of their students, and I think that's a huge part of why it's being done.
And the governor's call for a special session can include whatever the governor wants to put in it on pensions. And we think these are directly related. And this is the people's house. And if the people disagree with the legislation that is being put forth, they ought to be able to come and protest without fear of reprisal.
Brent, when JCTA decided it was going to join this lawsuit?
We've been in communication with the staff here in the AG's office. We developed this together. So shortly after we learned of the subpoenas, we've been working together in order to protect the ability of teachers to advocate for their students.
And to go back to Tom's question, you're not covered by the ethics of what the governor's put down. Why did your union not back Andy Beshear
Well,
in the race?
It's really, my understanding is it'd be inappropriate to get into those kind of questions here.
If the restraining order isn't issued, how will you respond?
Well, we will continue to fight in this lawsuit to ensure that even if they can subpoena that information, that they never get close to fining a teacher. I'm not going to let that happen.
Was KEA asked to join the lawsuit?
Well, KEA is always invited to participate in what they choose to. If you look at all these lawsuits I've had to file, we have different people that are involved. In the retirement case where we took Matt Bevin to court and beat him 7-0 on his attempts to illegally cut retirements, JCTA members were at risk, and KEA was in on that one. JCTA is in on this one. And if you remember the university budget cuts case, we didn't have a single university willing to step up and sit next to us, but we still took it to the Supreme Court, and we're able to win, get the right result, and return that $18 million where it belongs.
Brett, how are
We've
your
been-
teachers feeling right now? Are they frustrated? Are they scared? Just how are the teachers feeling?
I think teachers are scared. I think that's the purpose of what's being done, to intimidate them so that they don't engage to advocate for their students. I think they're uncertain about what's going to happen with this, and it really distracts them from where their focus should be on their students. And so I think it's really regrettable that the issue is continuing on, because Governor Bevin's labor cabinet is pursuing these subpoenas and so forth. It's not productive.
The governor seems to be, he's retweeting this story from WDRB where, Kevin Wheatley reported that KEA was advising its members that calling in sick could lead to consequences related to their job. So
Right.
I think the governor
There-
should point out,
what-
how are you now coming forward and
Right.
saying that we're going to defend this action?
Well, it's the exact law I just discussed. If there is an issue here, it would have to be one between the employer school district and the teachers themselves. But it's certainly not the labor cabinet that can decide an employer is wrong for not trying to punish an employee and step in their place. That's just one great example of why the labor cabinet secretary does not have the power to do what he is doing, which shows that this is yet another abuse of power from a governor who thinks he controls everything.
What judge is this been assigned to, do you know?
We just filed it, so we don't know yet.
I'm gonna switch topics just for
Okay.
Also filed the unborn child anti-discrimination act ceremony later today, so we're gonna be back in the news with. I just foresee any legality issues with that.
The ACLU has already filed suit. There is currently a temporary restraining order against it, which means that the judge thinks that there is a likelihood that the ACLU will win. The Seventh Circuit has ruled a similar bill, if not an identical bill, as unconstitutional. So what the governor ought to be signing today is a personal check to reimburse the Commonwealth for the hundreds of thousands of dollars that we will owe because of this legislation.
Will you defend the state against this lawsuit?
The state has already chosen its lawyers, but it's unconstitutional. I would not defend it. We will lose that case, and we will owe hundreds of thousands of dollars. At the end of the day, everybody has a duty to enforce the Constitution, and this is another unconstitutional bill.
Going back to pension, obviously
Yes.
pensions aren't the issue directly on this lawsuit, but it has been an issue of protest for a lot of teachers in the area.
Right.
When Governor Benton came into office, he came into one of the worst funded pension systems in the country to the point where it got national music pension. Does the previous administration deserve any blame for that?
Well, I think when we look at where we got, there are so many factors, and they cross all party lines, and they also include the greatest international recession of our lifetime. But I think what's important is where we go from here. We have to create new sources of dedicated revenue, and this is something I've advocated for as Attorney General going back a year and a half. And the very first one ought to be expanded gaming. We have virtually every state around us taking dollars of tax revenue from Kentuckians. If Kentuckians didn't make a single additional bet, but we were able to keep all of the revenue here in Kentucky, it'd be about $550 million. That ought to be put towards the pension system for every year until it's solvent. And there are a number of other ways we can raise that revenue. But what I've stood up for are illegal attempts to cut benefits that we have promised under law. Now, I'm a Fayette County public school graduate. I would not be in this room but for my public school teachers, and I don't think I'd be the person that I am without their investment in me. We have made them all a promise. We have to keep that promise. That's not just my belief, that's the law. All right, thanks.